War has always demanded adaptation, but during the Second World War, adaptation often meant the difference between living to see another sunrise or disappearing into the chaos of the front lines. Soldiers on every front found themselves cut off from supplies, short on tools, and facing enemies who were better equipped. When ammunition ran low, when rations dwindled, when defensive structures fell apart, the only thing left to rely on was human ingenuity. Out of scraps of metal, twisted wire, branches, rope, and even discarded food tins, men crafted traps that could delay enemy patrols, protect a vulnerable position, or catch a single rabbit that might stretch a platoon's strength just a little longer. These weren't inventions of convenience. They were born of desperation, necessity, and sheer willpower, and improvised science of survival that today still offers lessons in resilience and the unbreakable instinct to endure. Food was often the first crisis. Outposts, deep in forests, in mountains, or behind shifting battle lines couldn't depend on steady supplies. Rations were small, unreliable, and often spoiled before they could be delivered. Soldiers turned to the wilderness around them, not with modern hunting gear, but with what they could salvage: wire stripped from crates, parachute cord, or even threads pulled from uniforms became snares set along narrow game trails in Europe's forests and in the Pacific jungle heat. Troops sometimes laid out dozens of these traps in a single evening, knowing that maybe only one or two would catch anything. A length of wire bent into a simple noose, placed every few feet along a rabbit trail, could mean fresh meat in the morning and the calories needed to push through another grueling day. When snares weren't enough, they built deadfall traps, heavy logs balanced delicately on sticks designed to collapse at the slightest nudge. With no need for metal parts or complex mechanisms, deadfalls were perfect for soldiers stripped down to the basics. Some baited them with stale bread, others with scraps of rancid rations that were still enticing to local animals. It was the same logic that drives survivalists today. Simple engineering, careful placement, and the patience to let nature work. But improvised traps weren't only about feeding hungry soldiers. They were a defensive language written into the terrain. When barbed wire ran out, when mines weren't available, when a handful of men had to hold a vulnerable clearing, they relied on creativity. In the Pacific Islands, troops dug punji pits, shallow holes lined with sharpened stakes, masked beneath a thin layer of leaves or grass. Even a small wound from one of those stakes, especially in humid jungle conditions, could take a soldier out of action for weeks. Infection was a silent enemy, one that needed no ammunition. Tripwire traps played their part too. A single length of salvaged wire, stretched low across a trail, could be tied to the pin of a grenade. When an enemy patrol brushed it, the trap did the rest. Crude, terrifying, and effective. Modern readers can't legally replicate such traps today. Yet the underlying idea, simple trip mechanism, triggering a signal or alarm, remains just as practical for campsite security or emergency preparedness. It's not the explosion that matters, it's the principle, using tension, motion, and sound to detect approaching danger. Not every trap was designed to wound. Many were simply warnings. Soldiers created improvised alarms using tin cans filled with pebbles, strung between trees as a crude but reliable perimeter. Others used fishing line tied to suspended bottles or bamboo segments that knocked together with a sound distinct enough to wake weary guards. In the darkness of a forest or jungle, a single clatter might save an entire platoon from ambush. These alarms still hold value today. Anyone camping in unfamiliar territory can recreate them with nothing more than cord, cans, or even small sticks. They are reminders that sophisticated gear is helpful, but not essential. The same lessons soldiers learned under far harsher conditions. Of course, the success of any trap depended on its invisibility. Soldiers blended their work into the environment with care that bordered on artistry. Snow dusted over trip, leaves carefully placed over pits, mud and foliage disguising dead. In every season, in every terrain, concealment was as important as construction. A trap that could be seen was useless. A trap that disappeared into the landscape was a powerful advantage. The deeper truth behind all these improvised tools is simple. The power wasn't in the traps themselves, but in the creativity that forged them. A few scraps of wire, a broken can, a fallen branch, these became tools for survival in hands that refused to give up. The war was fought with tanks and planes, yes, but also with the quiet genius of ordinary men, forced to think under pressure, to improvise solutions when resources ran out, and to turn whatever the battlefield provided into something useful. For today's survivalist, the lessons remain timeless. Learn the environment. Understand basic mechanics. Recognize that a tool doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to work. For the historian, these traps tell a different story of the war. Not one of grand strategy or sweeping victories, but of individual endurance, of soldiers who created, adapted, and overcame challenges that no textbook fully captures. Though technology has changed, the principles have not. Snares and deadfalls are still taught in survival schools. Perimeter alarms made from cans and wire still appear in military field manuals. The creativity shown by World War II soldiers continues to shape how modern survivalists think about self. These traps were never about sophistication. They were about survival, outsmarting hunger, outmaneuvering danger, and holding the line when the odds were overwhelming. World War II was a clash of nations, but it was also a test of human endurance. Soldiers who built traps from nothing proved that survival depends less on what you lack and more on what you can create. Whether they caught food with wire snares, slowed enemies with hidden pits, or protected their camps with the soft rattle of cans in the night, they left behind lessons that still speak to us today. Lessons about resilience, about improvisation, and about the unstoppable drive to keep going, no matter what stands in the way. If this look into the hidden ingenuity of World War II sparked your interest, there's always more to uncover. Share this story with those who appreciate the resilience of the past and the practical wisdom it still offers for the present.